Good morning, friends. It's Brother Peter. Good Friday morning, the day that we reflect on the passion and suffering, on the death of Jesus. I just wanted to check in and share a brief reflection with you today. Jesus calls his disciples to deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow him. Over the centuries, taking up our cross has blurred and softened into a sentimentalized concept. Bearing the hardships of life has often been referred to as carrying a cross. People wear crosses, put them on their car as stickers, even have them elaborately tattooed to their bodies. But can we really understand what the cross meant to those first century listeners to this instruction? I think it depends on our proximity to the many crucifixions currently taking place on earth daily. Some of us have the privilege to see the cross as a decorative fetish, like the Roman citizens in occupied Jerusalem. We know what it is, but we also know it isn't our destiny. It can be a poster, a sticker, a tattoo. For young Black men in the cities of the United States, the danger and terror of crucifixion is as close as the policeman in a car that pulls you over for a missing headlight. For a young trans girl walking home alone, it is as close as the group of homophobic or transphobic boys walking toward her. For the elderly Jewish man walking home from temple, it is as close as the next violent act of the nearest adherent to the constant barrage of white Christian supremacy which pervades our discourse. For Asians, for Muslims, for women, for the disabled, for the poor, for the suffering, for those suffering from depression and other mental illnesses, for the addict, the alcoholic, for the victim of bullying. The pain of the cross is imminent. It is not a concept, a hymn, a sermon, a sticker, a tattoo, a statue, or a stained glass window. It is part of the terrifying here and now. The disenfranchised have a truly deeper understanding of what the cross is all about. Like Jesus, they live in the shadow of the cross. It is a part of their daily life. They know this terror can be visited upon them at any moment. Some of us can recall seeing scenes from Jesus' way to Calvary depicted on the walls of our churches in our earliest church memories. Those of us who attended Corpus Christi will remember the vivid reliefs depicting this journey from the judgment before Pilate to the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. In the Middle Ages, Franciscans brought this visual tradition back from the Holy Land to enable those faithful who could not make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem to experience viscerally walking the way of the cross. Devout Catholics could retrace this journey prayerfully on their own, or as a group led by their priests, especially on Friday evenings during Lent. You may have heard Reverend Myra preaching on the theology of Dr. James Cone. Cone is considered the father of Black liberation theology. In a 2008 interview with Fresh Air's Terry Gross, Cone described Black liberation theology as a belief that God is concerned with the poorest and weakest members of society. In most cases, Cone said, those people were Black. Black theology is an understanding of the gospel which sees justice for the poor as the very heart of what the Christian gospel is about, and the very heart of what God is doing in this world, he said. Cone preached that Black Americans were not made for exploitation or slavery, but rather for the freedom that all followers of the gospel strove toward. He was inspired by both Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. King, he said, gave Black theology its Christian identity. Malcolm X gave Black theology its Black identity. It's important because we were Black before we were Christian, he said in the interview. Black liberation theology supports a Black Christian self-esteem, Cone said. Without loving yourself, he said, you cannot love one another. In The Cross and the Lynching Tree, Dr. Cone asserts, the cross can heal and hurt. It can be empowering and liberating, but also enslaving and oppressive. There is no one way in which the cross can be interpreted. I offer my reflections because I believe that the cross placed alongside the lynching tree can help us to see Jesus in America in a new light, and thereby empower people who claim to follow him to take a stand against white supremacy and every kind of injustice. Dr. Cone's closing thought in an interview with Bill Moyers was, there's always a little bit of good and bad mixed up. The question is, does the bad have the last word? It does not. There is always hope. Anybody who gives up hope in despair, they die. So loving God, as we prayerfully spend this Good Friday reflecting on the suffering and death of Jesus, grant us an ever greater awareness of those suffering in our midst and the courage to respond with loving action. Thank you for joining me on Good Friday. Blessings to all. We'll see you tomorrow for the Easter Vigil. Thank you for walking along this journey with me. Remember, we're heading into this great miracle of resurrection. We are the resurrection. You and I are the resurrection. So let's move forward into that light together. Peace, everybody, and blessings. Happy Easter.